10,000 elderly citizens stood beneath the scorching Limpopo sun, watching their lifelong savings vanish into thin air as VBS Mutual Bank collapsed overnight. While working-class families faced immediate financial ruin, tens of millions of rand flowed quietly through covert front accounts to fund hyper-luxury sports vehicles, bespoke tailored attire, and opulent private estates in elite suburbs. Behind the fierce revolutionary berets, high-voltage rallies, and solemn promises of radical economic freedom lies a complex web of shell companies and backroom political bargaining that reaches the very heart of the state. If power changes hands, but not structure, has anything really changed? Stay with us. This is more than a headline. It is a hinge in history. If this story resonates with your sense of justice, show your support with like a comment or a subscription to keep the flame of truth burning. Today on South African Dynamics, we peel back the mask of populist rhetoric to rigorously investigate the deep-seated tension between political posturing and institutional accountability. We examine how financial shadow networks and parliamentary battles define the future of a nation standing at a historical crossroads. To understand the true nature of political power in contemporary South Africa, one must look beyond the roaring stadium rallies and the sea of red berets. For over 10 years, Julius Malema has positioned himself as the uncompromising tribune of the dispossessed, demanding the immediate expropriation of land and the nationalization of the nation's vast mineral wealth. Yet behind this formidable political front lies a stark and troubling contradiction that continues to shake the foundation of the Republic. While millions of ordinary citizens struggle against grinding poverty, soaring unemployment, and crumbling public infrastructure, an intricate financial trail paints a dramatically different picture of lifestyle patronage and power. This contradiction moved from quiet whisper to national outcry through the devastating collapse of VBS Mutual Bank. Established specifically to serve rural communities, pensioners and vulnerable burial societies in Limpopo VBS was systematically drained of over 2 billion rand in what forensic investigators termed a brazen plunder of public trust. Millions of rand from this mutual bank did not vanish into thin air. Instead, forensic audits and official banking liquidator reports revealed that funds flowed directly through intermediary corporate entities, most notably Mahuna Investments and Grand Azania. These shell companies, operated by close associates and family relations, served as covert financial conduits. Through these accounts, vast sums were channeled to finance an extravagant lifestyle far removed from the daily realities of the working class. High-end German engineering custom luxury sports vehicles, including top-tier Mercedes-AMG models, Range Rover sports and high-performance vehicles were procured alongside lavish stays at exclusive boutique hotels, bespoke designer apparel, and the upkeep of palatial residential properties in Sandown and Polokwane, where political rhetoric preached collective sacrifice, private ledgers recorded personal indulgence. This stark divide between public principle and private practice lies at the absolute heart of the broader Malema wealth scandal. For a nation already enduring severe economic paralysis, this revelation was a shattering blow. The tragedy of VBS was not merely a story of financial mismanagement, it was a profound human crisis. Elderly villagers who had saved their meager earnings for decades suddenly found bank doors locked and accounts wiped clean. The contrast could not be more glaring. On one side, rural grandmothers unable to buy basic sustenance. On the other, political elites driving high-performance vehicles funded by the very institutions meant to protect the vulnerable. This dynamic exposes the perpetual conflict between integrity versus corruption within post-apartheid governance. When political movements claim to fight for the marginalized while absorbing the proceeds of institutional plunder, public trust evaporates. As global observers and citizens follow Malema latest news, The public is forced to reckon with whether radical rhetoric is being utilized as a shield to deflect scrutiny from financial accumulation. Yet the accumulation of wealth through questionable corporate channels represents only one dimension of this struggle. As legal authorities began closing in on these financial networks, the battleground shifted rapidly from banking ledgers to the halls of Parliament, where a far more dangerous confrontation over state intelligence, private spies, and national security was about to erupt. The confrontation that brought these underlying tensions to an explosive head did not occur in a traditional courtroom, but under the harsh fluorescent lights of a parliamentary inquiry. Here, the collision between state authority, political ambition, and covert intelligence reached its absolute climax. At the center of this storm stood Paul O'Sullivan, a veteran private investigator who had spent over 3 decades operating at the volatile intersection of law enforcement and intelligence gathering. Facing him across the committee table was Julius Malema, flanked by his senior party lieutenants, determined to dismantle O'Sullivan's standing as an unassailable anti-corruption crusader. What unfolded was a masterclass in political theater and legal warfare. Malema and EFF parliamentarians launched a relentless cross-examination, questioning O'Sullivan's legitimacy and raising explosive allegations regarding his past. The committee room transformed into an arena of intense accusation. EFF representatives probed into O'Sullivan's historical ties with foreign security apparatuses, citing official vetting documentation from the National Intelligence Agency dating back to 2002. They publicly read out his former United Kingdom military force, number 2430218, from his service in the 1970s, framing him not as an independent investigator, but as an unvetted operative holding dangerous influence over domestic security organs. The interrogation deepened as lawmakers brought up old legal records, including a domestic dispute docket opened in Randburg, where O'Sullivan had paid an admission of guilt over 26 years prior. For Malema, this was a calculated tactical maneuver designed to strip away his opponent's moral authority. The message sent across national television was sharp. Those who claim to purge the state of criminality must themselves be held to the highest standard of public scrutiny. Before we reveal the next chapter, which is perhaps the most powerful assertion of sovereignty you will ever hear, I want to pause and speak directly to you. If South African dynamics has moved you, consider becoming a member. Every membership is a vote for our mission to document the unvarnished truth. Join us today. Paul O'Sullivan did not retreat. Refusing to yield to relentless parliamentary pressure, he struck back with blistering fury. He vehemently rejected the label of a spy, declaring that he had risked his life for 36 years to fight institutional corruption within the police and the prosecuting authorities. He openly accused lawmakers of running a kangaroo court designed to intimidate witnesses and shield high-ranking political figures from criminal prosecution. As voices rose and parliamentary decorum buckled under the weight of bitter exchanges, O'Sullivan threatened to withdraw his cooperation entirely, insisting that he would not tolerate being subjected to bad faith interrogation by politicians protecting criminal interests. This explosive exchange within the Paul O'Sullivan Parliament hearings exposed a profound crisis within the state architecture. It highlighted how private intelligence actors, political parties, and law enforcement agencies have become hopelessly intertwined in a fight for institutional control. Yet as the dust settled over the committee room and threats of criminal contempt echoed through the corridors of power, the real victim of this spectacle was becoming undeniable. The ordinary citizens watching their democracy fracture under the weight of untouchable power. The civil and economic wreckage left in the wake of the VBS Mutual Bank collapse reverberated far beyond the borders of Limpopo, fundamentally shaking the fragile social contract between impoverished communities and the political class. Across township streets and rural villages, the harsh economic realities of soaring inflation, chronic power outages, and catastrophic youth unemployment collided directly with revelations of systemic plunder. For millions of South Africans, the destruction of a financial institution specifically created to uplift the black working class was not an abstract policy failure. It was a devastating human tragedy. When funds earmarked for communal burial societies, municipal infrastructure, and elderly pensioners were siphoned into luxury accounts, public faith in the post-apartheid democratic project suffered a profound and lasting wound. In the political sphere, these revelations fundamentally altered the balance of power within the National Assembly. As public indignation intensified, civil society organizations and legal watchdogs demanded uncompromising accountability for every individual named in official forensic dockets. Yet a stark paradox defined the legislative hall. On one hand, as Julius Malema exposes deep-seated state capture networks, executive overreach, and law enforcement irregularities during parliamentary debates, his movement simultaneously faced intense scrutiny over its own financial linkages to shell accounts. This duality created a deep rift within the electorate, forcing citizens to weigh high-voltage revolutionary rhetoric against the cold, unyielding realities of forensic banking records. Now let us turn this story into a shared moment. Take a second right here to tell us where you are watching from. Type the name of your city, your country, or the land beneath your feet in the comment section below. South African Dynamics would like to express our deepest gratitude to everyone tuning in today, and we send to each of you a heartfelt wish. May peace, dignity, and unwavering courage walk beside you on every step of your journey. Let our comment section become a bridge of solidarity, connecting voices across the global diaspora. The broader social consequences of this crisis continue to reshape the political landscape of the Republic. As traditional party loyalties fracture and voter turnout among young citizens drops to historical lows, the demand for institutional integrity has superseded ideological promises. When ordinary taxpayers watch tens of millions of rand move through covert corporate structures without swift prosecution, the moral authority of governance vanishes. Tell us in the comments, can a nation truly rebuild its economic future when political power remains insulated from legal accountability? However, the fallout from this domestic crisis did not stop at the borders of South Africa. As the integrity of the state's financial and judicial systems faltered under public scrutiny, foreign intelligence observers, international financial institutions, and global diplomatic partners began taking note, setting the stage for an international reckoning that would bring far broader geopolitical pressures to bear. The escalating political turbulence within South Africa has not unfolded in isolation. It has captured the intense scrutiny of international diplomatic missions, foreign intelligence analysts, and global financial institutions across Washington, London, and Brussels. For Western powers and regional bodies like the African Union, the stability of South Africa is paramount, not merely as an economic anchor for the continent, but as a critical bellwether for democratic governance across the global South. When allegations of systemic corruption, shadow banking networks, and private espionage dominate the national discourse, international markets respond with immediate caution, reflecting deep uncertainty over sovereign risk and institutional reliability. Diplomatic observers closely monitored the intense exchanges of the EFF Parliamentary Inquiry, viewing the proceedings as a decisive litmus test for the independence of the Republic's judicial and security architecture. In foreign policy circles, the growing entanglement between private intelligence figures, state security apparatuses, and high-ranking political leaders raises alarming questions regarding state capacity and national sovereignty. The prospect of state security being effectively privatized, where private investigators and corporate intelligence firms hold dossiers on public officials, signals a precarious breakdown in institutional boundaries that extends far beyond domestic party politics. Furthermore, international financial watchdogs and credit rating agencies have repeatedly highlighted how unresolved financial scandals undermine foreign direct investment and deepen national economic vulnerability. For global partners, the central concern is whether the nation can uphold the rule of law while navigating fierce political polarization. As international observers watch these developments unfold, the struggle over governance in Pretoria is increasingly recognized not as a localized dispute, but as a crucial chapter in the global fight for democratic accountability and sovereign dignity. Yet, as foreign powers weigh the geopolitical ramifications of this political stalemate, the ultimate responsibility for reclaiming the nation's future does not rest in foreign capitals or international boardrooms. It remains firmly in the hands of the South African people themselves. As South Africa stands at this critical political crossroads, the path forward demands far more than surface-level political adjustments or theatrical parliamentary debates. The ongoing national reckoning over financial integrity, private intelligence networks, and institutional governance has exposed the profound vulnerability of a democratic system struggling to fulfill its post-apartheid promise. Resolving the current South Africa crisis requires an uncompromising commitment to structural transformation, one that strips away the shield of political patronage and restores unyielding transparency to every level of state administration. The core challenge facing the Republic is whether its democratic institutions can withstand the immense pressure of partisan conflict while asserting true national sovereignty. For decades, political movements have used the language of liberation to capture public imagination. Yet real economic transformation remains stalled while inequality deepens. To build a sustainable future, the nation must dismantle the entrenched networks of influence that allow public funds to be siphoned into private accounts. True economic independence cannot be achieved through fiery speeches or empty promises. It requires the systematic enforcement of the law against every actor who threatens the Republic's integrity, regardless of their political standing or proximity to the seat of power. In this ongoing struggle for the soul of the nation, the ultimate test of democracy lies in the balance between accountability versus impunity. If those who occupy high office or command public movements remain insulated from judicial scrutiny, the very foundation of constitutional rule begins to erode. The people of South Africa, from rural communities in Limpopo to urban centers in Gauteng, are increasingly demanding a fundamental shift in political culture. Not reform, not rhetoric, accountability. This rising civic consciousness reflects a deep-seated determination to ensure that the sacrifices of past generations are not squandered by contemporary greed or political cynicism. Ultimately, the path toward national renewal hinges on the ability of citizens to reclaim their constitutional voice and demand that public power serves the collective good. The future of South Africa will not be dictated by shadow networks or private intelligence dockets, but by the relentless pursuit of justice, economic dignity, and sovereign self-determination. Yet, as the nation looks toward an uncertain horizon, the ultimate question remains whether this historical moment will mark the collapse of public trust or the powerful rebirth of a truly accountable republic. What began as an investigation into luxury vehicle fleets and covert shell accounts has uncovered a far deeper struggle for the moral soul of South Africa. As Julius Malema exposes systemic state corruption and challenges established authorities, the nation is forced to confront the stark realities behind political populist spectacle. The tense proceedings of the EFF Parliamentary Inquiry laid bare the dangerous intersection between private intelligence, corporate interests, and democratic institutions. This is not merely a contest between competing political figures, but a defining test of constitutional resilience for a republic striving to fulfill its historical mandate. If a nation has the vote, but not the voice, is it truly a democracy? The fundamental promise of liberation was never meant to enrich a new political aristocracy, while rural communities watch their savings disappear into financial shadows. True economic liberation requires a radical reordering of priorities that places human dignity above partisan accumulation. Not growth, not wealth, distribution. Before we close, let us pause. What you have just heard is a reminder that sovereignty, dignity and hope are still alive, waiting to be claimed. If this message has moved you, subscribe to South African Dynamics now. By subscribing, you choose to walk with us into the next chapter of Africa's unfolding story. Subscribe today and stand ready for what comes next. As the nation confronts these unfolding revelations, every citizen and observer is called to defend the principles of truth and justice. The struggle continues, and as Julius Malema exposes the underlying fault lines of power, South Africa's journey toward genuine democratic accountability remains an inspiration and a lesson for the world.